What if I told you that a lawyer's 8-minute death revealed the exact date religious freedom dies in America? During my cardiac arrest 3 years ago, I was shown exactly how it will happen in 2025. I understand this sounds impossible. I was the biggest skeptic of divine visions and near-death experiences. As a constitutional lawyer who defended religious freedom for 20 years, I never believed in divine prophecy or supernatural experiences. But what I saw during those 8 minutes of clinical death will terrify every believer in America. In this video, I'll reveal the exact 3-stage persecution timeline I witnessed, the 7 specific technologies already targeting Christians, and the 5 concrete protection steps you must take before March 2025 to save your family's faith. But before I share these divine warnings that could save your religious freedom, let me tell you exactly what I experienced when I died, because every detail is already manifesting in our courts. It was March 15th, 2021. I was preparing for a major religious liberty case when I felt crushing chest pain. As a lawyer who'd spent 20 years defending constitutional freedoms, I thought I understood religious persecution. I was wrong. As I collapsed in my office, gasping for breath, I had no idea I was about to receive the most important briefing of my legal career. The paramedics worked on me for 8 minutes. Clinically, I was dead. My heart had stopped, my brain activity was minimal, and my colleagues later told me they thought I was gone. But during those 8 minutes, I experienced something that defied every rational explanation I'd built my legal career on. As I felt my life slipping away, I found myself standing in what I can only describe as a cosmic courtroom. The walls seemed to pulse with living light, and before me sat a figure whose presence radiated both infinite love and absolute justice. I knew immediately I was in the presence of the divine judge. What happened next changed my understanding of everything. I was shown a timeline, a prophetic convergence that made my legal training feel insignificant. The year 2025 appeared before me like burning letters, and I saw religious freedom cases cascading through America's court system with supernatural precision. But this wasn't just about legal precedent. I was shown that these cases represent a spiritual winnowing, a divine test to separate those who merely profess faith from those who will stand when persecution intensifies. The Supreme Court decisions coming in 2025 will either preserve religious liberty or create the legal framework for systematic persecution of authentic believers. But the divine judge wasn't just showing me spiritual battles. He was revealing the earthly weapons that would be used against believers. What I saw next terrified me even more than the cosmic courtroom itself. But here's what will blow your mind. The technology they're building right now is already being tested on believers. What I'm about to show you will make your blood run cold. Digital surveillance systems that can monitor not just what you say, but what you believe. Social credit scores that will punish religious convictions. Banking systems that will freeze accounts for supporting biblical values. Employment algorithms that will blacklist Christians from entire industries. But Sarah's case is just the beginning. Let me tell you about Sarah, a Christian teacher I'm defending right now. Last month, her school's AI monitoring system flagged her for religious bias because she mentioned intelligent design in passing. Within 48 hours, her employment file was marked for review. This isn't fiction. This is happening now, and it's exactly what I saw in my vision. The technology arsenal I witnessed includes facial recognition systems that identify churchgoers, AI that monitors sermon content for hate speech, and blockchain systems that track every dollar donated to Christian organizations. This experience taught me that what I saw wasn't random persecution. It was a systematic dismantling of religious freedom, orchestrated with precision that could only come from spiritual forces opposed to authentic faith. The divine judge showed me case files from the future. I saw specific lawsuits that haven't been filed yet, but are being prepared right now. But here's what will shock you. I saw the exact dates these cases would be filed, and they're being prepared right now in law offices across America. I could hear the gavel strikes echoing like thunder, each one sealing another believer's fate. The courtroom felt cold, sterile. Nothing like the warm presence I'd experienced with the divine judge. As I watched these future cases unfold, I felt that same crushing weight from my cardiac arrest, the helpless realization that everything I'd built my career on was about to crumble. Remember, I was a constitutional lawyer who never believed in prophecy. But I was seeing legal briefs, court filings, and judicial opinions with dates I couldn't ignore. These weren't vague spiritual impressions. These were detailed legal documents showing how religious freedom would be systematically dismantled through the court system. Wait until you hear what I saw next. The technology they're already using will blow your mind. The international warning signs that are already manifesting around the world. I saw the pattern, the same legal and technological framework being used to persecute Christians in other nations, being adapted and refined for implementation in America. I'll never forget watching Pastor James Coates being led away in handcuffs, a scene I witnessed in my vision before it happened in real life. The Canadian authorities didn't just arrest him, they made an example. But here's what terrified me most. The same officers, the same procedures, the same media coverage. I saw it all being planned for American pastors in 2025. The divine judge made it clear, these aren't isolated international incidents, they're beta tests. The same legal frameworks, the same technological tools, the same systematic approach to religious persecution is being refined and prepared for deployment in the United States. The persecution playbook is already written. 2025 is when it goes nationwide. But wait, what I saw next was even more sinister than government persecution. The enemy's masterpiece wasn't force. It was deception so beautiful that even the elect would be fooled. This global persecution playbook revealed something even more sinister. The same forces implementing these systems worldwide were preparing the ultimate deception, a false unity that would make persecution seem like love. Just last week, I received a call from Pastor David in Austin, and his story will chill you to the bone. His denomination's leadership asked him to sign what they called a unity covenant. It sounded beautiful, promoting love, peace, and religious harmony. But buried in the fine print was a clause requiring him to acknowledge that all sincere religious paths lead to divine truth. When he refused, they didn't just disagree with him, they labeled him divisive, a threat to church unity. The false unity movement will present itself as the solution to religious conflict. It will promise peace between faiths, tolerance for all beliefs, and an end to religious division, but it's a trap. Those who join this false unity will have to abandon the exclusivity of Christ, the authority of Scripture, and the moral standards that make Christianity distinct from secular culture. I saw prominent Christian leaders signing ecumenical agreements that sound beautiful on the surface, but require believers to treat all religions as equally valid paths to God. I watched as churches that refused to participate were labeled as divisive, extremist, and eventually dangerous to social harmony. The technology will support this deception. Artificial intelligence will monitor sermons, identifying churches that teach exclusive salvation through Christ as potential sources of religious hatred. Social media algorithms will suppress content that presents Christianity as the only true faith, labeling it as intolerant or discriminatory. Standing in that cosmic courtroom, watching this spiritual war unfold, I felt my heart breaking. But then the divine judge showed me something that changed everything, the exact timeline of how it will happen. When the divine judge showed me this four-stage progression, my legal mind immediately began calculating timeline probabilities. But my heart was breaking. I saw my own children's faces in stage 4, imprisoned, beaten, but still declaring that Jesus is Lord. That's when I knew this wasn't just professional knowledge. This was a father's nightmare becoming prophetic reality. Here's something that will make your blood run cold. America is already in stage 2. The divine judge showed me how persecution always follows the same pattern. First, marginalization through social pressure. Then, economic consequences through employment and business restrictions. Next, legal penalties through fines, lawsuits, and criminal charges. Finally, physical persecution through imprisonment and violence. As the weight of this persecution timeline pressed down on me, I felt despair beginning to overwhelm my spirit. But then the divine judge's expression changed, and for the first time, I saw something that filled me with unshakable hope. A remnant of believers who will stand firm, regardless of the cost. Christians who value truth more than comfort, who choose faithfulness over social acceptance, who understand that following Christ has always required sacrifice. These believers will experience supernatural protection and provision during the coming trials. Here's the part that could save your life. The 5 steps I wish I'd known before my cardiac arrest. Most Christians are doing the exact opposite of what they should be doing right now. Here's what I wish someone had told me before my cardiac arrest, before I saw what's coming. The believers who will survive this persecution aren't just spiritually prepared, they're strategically positioned. Let me walk you through the exact steps that could save your faith, your family, and your future. First, strengthen your relationship with God through authentic prayer and Bible study. Surface-level faith won't survive what's coming. You need deep roots in Scripture and personal experience with God's presence. The believers who will stand firm are those who know God intimately, not just intellectually. Second, build community with other believers who share your commitment to biblical truth. Isolated Christians are easy targets for persecution. I learned this lesson the hard way when I watched a fellow lawyer lose everything because he had no Christian community to support him through a discrimination lawsuit. But believers connected in authentic fellowship can support each other through trials, share resources during economic pressure, and maintain hope when individual faith weakens. Third, prepare practically for economic persecution. Diversify your income sources, build savings, and develop skills that don't depend on corporate employment. The economic attacks on Christians will be swift and comprehensive. Those who are financially dependent on secular institutions will face impossible choices between faith and survival. Fourth, document everything. Keep records of discrimination, harassment, and persecution you experience. The legal battles coming in 2025 will require evidence, witnesses, and documentation. Build relationships with lawyers who understand religious liberty and aren't afraid to defend unpopular clients. Fifth, prepare for technology persecution. Learn about digital privacy, secure communication, and alternative platforms that won't suppress religious content. The technological tools used to monitor and control Christians are already being deployed. You need to understand how to protect your digital footprint and maintain communication with other believers when mainstream platforms ban religious expression. But here's something that will give you chills. The supernatural protection I witnessed wasn't what you'd expect. In fact, it's the complete opposite of what most Christians pray for. The divine judge made one thing absolutely clear. This persecution isn't punishment for faithful believers, it's purification. Just like gold is refined through fire, authentic faith will be strengthened through trials, while false faith will be exposed and eliminated. The coming persecution will reveal who truly follows Christ versus who merely enjoys the cultural benefits of Christian identity. I saw supernatural protection for believers who remain faithful during persecution, not protection from trials, but protection through them. Divine provision when employers fire Christians for their faith. Miraculous legal victories when the odds seem impossible. Unexplainable peace during imprisonment and persecution. God's presence manifesting powerfully when human institutions fail. You want proof this is real? 3 days after my NDE, the first case I saw in my vision was filed. The date matched exactly. Personal transformation has been profound for me. My legal practice completely changed focus after this experience. I now exclusively defend religious liberty cases, knowing that each victory delays the persecution timeline I was shown. I've documented everything from my NDE, creating legal resources for the remnant believers who will need them in 2025. My family initially struggled with my transformation. How do you explain to your spouse and children that you died, received a prophetic warning about religious persecution, and now view your legal career as a spiritual warfare battlefield? But as current events continue validating what I saw, even my skeptical family members are beginning to prepare. You want proof this is all happening right now? 3 days ago, just 3 days, I received something that made my hands shake. The document I'm about to describe will terrify you. You want to know how precisely my vision is manifesting? 3 days ago, I received a classified document from a client. The exact same Religious Liberty Commission structure I saw in my NDE, but they're calling it the Faith Harmony Initiative. The parallels are so identical, it sent chills down my spine. We're not just approaching 2025, we're already living in the early stages of the persecution timeline I witnessed. The banking restrictions I was shown during my NDE are already beginning. Payment processors are cutting off Christian organizations that oppose progressive sexual ethics. Social media platforms are suspending accounts for sharing Bible verses about marriage and family. Corporate diversity training programs are requiring statements that contradict Christian beliefs as conditions of employment. Time is running out faster than you think. While you're watching this video right now, the persecution machinery is already in motion. You now possess the 7 technological weapons I witnessed being deployed, the 5 concrete protection steps revealed in my vision, and the exact persecution timeline that begins in early 2025. This divine foreknowledge wasn't given to you by accident. If this prophetic warning has stirred something in your spirit, you're part of the remnant called to prepare. Subscribe and join thousands of believers who refuse to be caught unprepared. Share this divine warning with Christians who need to understand what's coming. Comment below with which preparation step you're taking first. Your testimony could save another believer's faith. Most importantly, examine your own faith honestly. The divine judge showed me specific dates and events that I'm still documenting for fellow believers. The persecution timeline I witnessed begins with Supreme Court decisions in early 2025, escalates through banking and employment restrictions by mid-2025, and reaches physical persecution by 2026. Are you truly committed to following Christ through each of these phases, or are you attached to the comfortable version of Christianity that has existed in America for the past century? The divine judge's final words to me were clear. Those who ignore this warning do so at their eternal peril. But those who prepare now will stand firm when others fall. I've shared this divine warning with you because I believe you're part of the remnant called to stand firm. The same divine judge who showed me these visions is calling you to prepare now, not just for your own spiritual survival, but to be a beacon of hope for others when persecution intensifies. The divine judge's message was both warning and invitation. Warning to prepare for trials that will test every aspect of faith. Invitation to join the remnant of believers who will stand firm, regardless of persecution, experiencing God's supernatural protection and provision during the darkest period in American religious history. Remember, you now possess divine foreknowledge that most Christians don't have. You've been chosen to receive this warning not by accident, but by divine appointment. The question that will define your eternity isn't whether you believe this vision, it's whether you'll act on it. Your religious freedom, your family's safety, and your eternal destiny depend on the choices you make right now.